All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Nuzhat. Uh, First off, I just want to congratulate you on your accomplishments with privacy. And without further ado, let's kind of jump in it and let's get started by, can you tell us a little bit about what privacy is and how it got started and what made it motivated you to get it started?
Yeah, so I'm an international student from Bangladesh, and growing up in a developing country, what it meant was that, the country itself, we have a lot of issues in terms of poverty and a lot of different types of crimes as well that are very serious. So there was lesser focus on tech. So when we did get exposure to a lot of newer technologies because telecom companies were expanding and everybody now, needed communication, what happened was now everybody had wider access to the internet, but the general population wasn't really aware of how they can be victimized over the internet and in many other ways through connectivity, primarily whether it be like cyber harassment or bullying. So it was something that was very new that like previous generations weren't really familiar with. So growing up, like the biggest instruction we had from our parents was just don't be on the internet. So being from my generation that had exposure to that technology, we weren't really willing to accept that. Like, we use this like internet to like the full like potential for learning and education and things like that. So when we were faced with such difficult situation on the internet, I know that we didn't have many resources for help, especially because the law enforcement in Bangladesh, they weren't particularly equipped with this newer kind of say victimization. So as a result, this is something that I've always wanted to work with ever since I was in like ninth grade, but I just didn't know how. And I knew that as more time went along, I would see that within my friend circles or people I knew, they were experiencing a lot of difficult situations as they were, using the internet for their work and studies and things like that. So after I came to RIT, I know that like I had access to so many resources, and especially because here in the U.S. there are so many specific guidelines and compliance in place for things like that. Um, so how I got started was I joined my first hackathon at RIT, which was Women in Computing, and I knew that I wanted to work on a project like this. This was back during my first year, and I didn't really know how to code. But Women in Computing Hackathon, they provide such a really like nice learning environment that there were mentors there from different companies who helped me out. They were like, so tell us your idea, what do you want to work with, and we will help you build it. So initially, what I wanted to do was build a website which would have like all sorts of definitions and resources that one can reach out to when they need help when they're facing, say, cyber crimes. Um, and the idea was, through a chat interface, they would be able to reach out to a responder, um, who would be able to assist them throughout the process. And I built it, and it was initially just like a minimal viable product. It wasn't that big. And but my idea piqued the interest of a lot of the mentors there, and I ended up winning JP Morgan's Best Hack for Social Good. So they kind of followed up with me after the hackathon to find ways in which they can help me develop the idea. And that's just how it began. And it went from there. And then RIT, like the professors and the staff, I told them about my project and they helped me kind of build it from there. So that's how it started.
That's quite a story. I mean, it definitely sounds like it's come a long way. Uh, would you be able to maybe tell us a little bit about how it's adapted and how it's grown from that initial step to what it is now? And how has it impacted your home country of Bangladesh?
So after I started working with privacy, I realized that there are two big sides of cybercrimes. One, which is human centric, where people are victimized, like through, like, say, cyber sexual harassment, cyberbullying, as I mentioned before. And then there's another side of it, which is technocentric, which is where, companies face, like, network disruptions or hacking and things like that. So what I did with privacy was I kind of divided it into two branches, and I started working on the human centric side of things. So I was able to get together a team of responders, which contains psychologists, counselors, responders, and guides and legal analysts. So what we do is when someone comes to us with a situation or like an incident, we're able to guide them to verified professional services. Now, what that means is that in Bangladesh, it's not like those resources don't exist, but just the fact that when someone experiences a cybercrime, they don't really know that what's happening to them is wrong since it's just so new to them. So there's no like awareness regarding it. So it was about bridging that gap between experiencing something and connecting them to help. So we got in touch with a lot of organizations that work with taking up legal cases against cybercrimes, because we in Bangladesh we do have like just a handful of cyber laws, but they're just not as intensely implemented or developed. So it was really about pushing to make sure that these victims receive some form of justice against what happened to them. And I myself, in no way am I qualified to deal with the emotional trauma that these people go through, because I'm not a psychologist. So it was really about getting a team together who, like, and I was lucky because they're just as passionate about this as I am. So it grew into this like a group of people who are now supporting others. So we started off by supporting that on social media, because everybody has Facebook and things like that, and they were able to reach out to us almost immediately. And over a course of 1 year, we've dealt with over like from 200 to 300 cases. And, we've had successful ones in court. And it's come a long way where we are recognized as an organization that can genuinely help people when they're experiencing some form of cybercrime. And what's crazy is that we realized that we're the first organization to do something like this, because it wasn't something that was addressed earlier. I know that our police department has a division against it, but it wasn't as developed. So we were able to get in touch with them as well and kind of forward cases. So that was something that really helped us impact a lot of people who needed help in that front. And as for like when we started expanding, we realized that on the technical side, we can't just be relying on having people reach out to us through social media. We decided to build our the website that I built initially. We decided to take that up a level and build our own independent messaging platform so that people can reach out to us there directly. As I think that's an option as well. So that's set to release soon. I know that I had to get a team of developers as well, and it's so nice to have that support. And I had help from RIT professors who helped me with the interface design, and how to help people with different from different languages. And then while I was expanding on that, I knew that as we focus more on the tech side of things, we didn't have access to as many people who work in tech, especially not women. And that's when I started, kind of focusing on how to introduce more people to that tech. And that was inspired by RIT Hacks, because I had access to all those resources and I wanted that for other women in my country as well. Because tech is such a male dominated space in my country. And I decided that I wanted to reach out to more people. So I got help from the director of Women in Computing, Lena, to host our own hackathon. And that's where we were able to have like over 150 registered female participants. And we were able to reach out to companies that were willing to recruit from our event. And we hosted workshops to introduce these participants to a lot of different types of tech, like animation, game development, app development, web development, before the event, so that they were able to build those projects during it. And it was a huge success because now these are now more interested in working within these fields that are not as prioritized in my parts of the world. I guess I'm lucky to be able to say that we've created that impact in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it definitely sounds like WIC Hacks and WIC have had a tremendous impact on you and your country. Um, and I do believe that you have had a vision of trying to take this past just your country. Is that correct? Are you trying to implement it in some other countries that could use some help in the cybersecurity realm?
Yeah, so when it comes to the human-centric cybercrimes, I know that this is an issue in many countries. And when I started working with PrivaC here, there were a lot of other students from different countries. Like I had the chance to meet so many international students here like me, whether they be from Pakistan or India, and other developing nations in the region. And they were like, so like, they were willing to kind of bring that to their country as well. So we were able to plan that out on how to expand that into their local traditional ways of dealing with these things. I know that's something that's probably in the future and like, not implemented right away. And like I said, once we started working with the technical side of things too, for companies and organizations, I got in touch with the Global Cybersecurity Institute here at RIT, and they told me about how just general technical commercial cybersecurity is also an issue, because even in Bangladesh, I know that since there are not as many security compliance and regulations in place, it's very easy for our data to be like not secure. So I know that that was also something that developing countries also need more support in, and I started getting in touch with more and more people within that space, and that's how we've been working on international projects, and that's definitely something that we're going to be working on throughout the future.
Great. So another aspect of what you've been doing is kind of uh, looking to build up, I think, equal rights and empower young women that are trying to get into the technology field. Why is that so important to you?
So, like, I know that growing up, it wasn't really expected of a girl to pursue tech. Like, there's this stereotype that, oh, in my parts of the world, if you're getting an education, a girl becomes a doctor and a boy becomes an engineer. And in my country, specifically in the STEM fields, like there's a huge gap. Like most of engineers and STEM students are male. And I started noticing that a lot of the companies that we're working with, they have a tech team with only one or two girls. And I know that can be like a difficult thing in the workspace. And also when you're pursuing an education, like when you're in a university and you're like, you have one or two female classmates, I know that's a difficult thing to have that support for each other. And I know that we face a lot of barriers when we're pursuing tech in my parts of the world, because women's rights in terms of development has been so much slower than it should be. Like I know that it's hard to even tell people that, oh, I'm a woman in tech back in my country, because they just assume that I don't have the skills, or the people studying are probably just not going to pursue it, because it's expected of most girls in my country to just get married at the age of like from 20 to 24, and that's like the prime time of pursuing an education usually. So it was kind of disheartening to see that a lot of girls like me who were passionate about pursuing that, they work hard, and then in the end they just don't get a result out of it. So I know that this is something that was very close to my heart. I have two sisters, and I would never want them to experience something similar. They're much younger, so I know that it started with me having that vision for my siblings, and then just understanding that we as women, we have to like, support each other within the community that we have. And having equal rights also means having that extend into newer paths for us, such as tech. So that's why I started working, especially with that.
That's awesome. Uh, I guess my last question would be then is I know that you are involved in a number of different things. You have obviously this organization, PrivaC, that you started. You're a member of WIC or have been a member, active member of WIC. You're also a student ambassador. You're an RA. You have numerous different things. You're on a co-op right now with Wegmans. So being so involved in so many different things, uh, what advice would you have for other students and maybe trying to balance all that, or maybe how it's important to get involved and really make the most of your time as a student? What advice would you have for them?
So I feel like a lot of students have that pressure that, oh, you just have to get involved with a lot of different things and alongside your academics. So they end up joining a lot of clubs and organizations that they don't particularly feel very passionate about. So I know that the only reason I'm able to work on so many things at once and be involved is because I feel passionate about those things. So for example, being an RA meant that I get to interact with so many people within my living space. Being on co-op means I'm expanding my technical skills and interpersonal skills and learning from people with that experience. And then I know that for like, having that, being part of WIC is about having that support from other women in tech like me. And because I know that they have so much more experience than I do, and having that learning experience is very important. And so I guess my advice to other students would definitely be that instead of overwhelming yourself with, making schedules and having, a lot on your plate, it's easier to pursue things that you're passionate about. Then it's just something fun. It's something that doesn't feel like a task anymore. Like when I'm, hanging out with other WIC members, we're all studying, getting work done, but it feels more productive and fun than more like a task. So I guess that's definitely something that I would like for other students to work with, because that's just an easy way of enjoying college while just being involved in learning and making the most out of their time here.
That's great advice. Well, thank you so much, Nuzhat. Tremendous job and keep up all the great work.